Hey everybody, I'm Larry Little.
And I'm Melissa Jackson.
And you're listening to RelationShifts, a podcast about relationships and how you can make them more effective and how you can make them better by just really making small shifts in your life and in your behavior.
You know, those small shifts, just the little things that you can do can really make a difference and an impact and kind of change the direction of your relationship.
So true. The little things matter, you know, and here we are talking about that in, what are we now? We're in May, is that right? And just came through spring and our Auburn Tigers didn't quite get there, although we had a great run in a fantastic Final Four. Just so proud. I'm proud of our Tigers, aren't you?
I am too.
Just have to say that.
It's
and
a lot of fun.
To all the Bama fans, you guys had a great run too, so congratulations. And whoever is listening that cares about college basketball, hope your team did well. I was being nice. That was pretty good, huh?
That is nice. That's very nice. So we're in May and the summer is right here. We're knocking on the door of the summer. Aren't you looking forward to it?
Well, you know, I am. It's going to be kind of a chill summer for me, I think. You know, I just did some things with my adult children that you know, were really fun. My daughter lives in New York and works for a news company up in New York with her husband. And we were able to go spend a weekend with them.
Oh, fun.
Wow, it was packed, and I've never seen so many people in all of my life. But like, we were able to go see Hamilton, the play, and I was so impressed with just the talent of the performers. But then my daughter had us lined up, you know, took us, in order to get to the play, we had to walk right down in Times Square. You know, there are a lot of people in Times Square. Listen, I'm like, so I asked her.
Were you people watching?
I was, you know I was, but it was hard to people watch because you had to watch where you were going, literally shoulder to shoulder. And I'm like, is this like this all the time? And to my daughter, and she was like, yeah, Dad, this is called New York.
So tell me, what was the favorite part of the trip? What did you enjoy the most?
I'll tell you what surprised me the most.
Okay.
What surprised me the most, and therefore my favorite part, was the friendliness of the people. I was really, really impressed. They live in what's called, I guess, the Upper East Side.
Okay. We
had to walk everywhere. You know, you had to either get on the subway, which was an interesting experience. But everywhere we went, people were very, very friendly, very kind. It was just
refreshing,
wasn't it? I thought, you know, and she had us going to all these different places to eat, so I've become somewhat of a foodie now, right? And I enjoyed that. But it was a good experience. Really good to be with our children.
So people were kind too. People were kind. I think you've written an LLM on that recently, haven't you?
About kindness. It's important. I think it's it's a rare thing, and I'm trying to learn to recognize it and appreciate it when it happens.
Take it in. Yeah.
So what about you?
Yeah, so we have just recently celebrated a big birthday with my girl and had such a great, fun week. And it started off with a visit to Atlanta. So we had a lot of fun in Atlanta, doing the aquarium, a couple other things. But our purpose was to go meet this author that my daughter loves. Her name is Jenny Cote. And she is just an incredible author. She writes books on history and she involves animals. And so it's just fun and interesting. She does research, massive research before she writes her books. And so she's just such an interesting lady. So thoughtful and thought-provoking. And so we got to share breakfast with her.
Oh, wow.
Ask her questions. And really just sit and listen and take it in. And so it was such a sweet time to learn. So just so insightful. Just some things, you know, when you're around people, you've been around people that you just listen, and some of the things that they say are so poignant, they're impactful. So we had some takeaways. We talked about some takeaways from the conversation. Yeah. Just a good time.
And talk about kindness. It sounds like she was truly a kind person.
Oh my goodness. Very, very kind. Yeah. Give us her time to, meet with us. Just a lot of fun.
And to put it in context, she's talking to a new teenager, right? Your daughter is, this is her 13th birthday. So she took time to talk to, And she had a friend with her, so your daughter had a friend, so these two girls.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, love to hear what one of the takeaways, what did you...
So it was from she said this was my daughter's takeaway from her, which, became kind of poignant for me.
Yeah.
And she's talking about the process. She's talking about so many different things. And she said, basically, be mindful with closed doors more than open doors. So things that close, things that, doors that close also guide you and help you in life and even in the writing process. And so closed doors are just as important as open doors. So,
wow.
I had to stop and kind of take that in and go, ooh,
deep.
That's good. I'm going to have to I had to press pause and I want to come back and, process some more on that. But
so true though.
It's good stuff.
So true. And for your daughter to have that takeaway at her age, that's really cool.
Well,
I think that's really cool.
It spoke to me. It spoke to me. But we've got some closed doors. We're closing out the school year. The summer is coming into play. And we want to talk about some tips, some things in order to help parents. And we have a question, right? We've been getting questions from those that have been listening.
All right.
So we have a question that we want to talk about.
Let's do it.
Thank you for those questions. So poignant. And so we have one today.
Okay.
And have it for you so we can talk about the personalities and how do we lean into that a little bit. So here is the question. So good. So for those of you that have parent children, okay, you've got these extroverted, people-driven parent children. So how do you teach a parent child? How do you teach a parent child to be less impulsive?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on this?
Great question. And just for those of you that are listening that don't understand the parent terminology, that's our vernacular for personality types, personality tendencies. Very quickly, there are four. The leading lion, the people-loving parrot, which is questions around today, the competent camel, and the tranquil turtle. And so that's in our book called Make a Difference. You can catch it on Amazon or our website at Eagle Center.
Just had a rewrite for 25 years.
Yes.
Just releasing
We're so excited.
So,
we had a release for that. Would love for you guys to check that out. How do you help a child who's a parent to be less impulsive? And it's all about in their... don't freak out with this, but neurologically, okay, how their brain is working. It's all about slowing them down. It's all about our parents have incredible compassion ability. They have incredible ability to connect in the moment. They have incredible ability to, but at the same time, they also have an ability to be very reactive and emotive.
That emotion
just comes out.
Yeah.
So giving your child some triggers, give them some words that you can say to her, that you can say to him. When I say this word, it means for you to stop and take an assessment of where you are and choose your words carefully. Choose your behavior carefully. So what those trigger words are could be anything that's meaningful that they would recognize. It could be, dog, house, cat, whatever it is, blue, red, whatever the word is. Come up with a word. Let your child help you with that word and let her take ownership of that and use that. It's called, in the clinical world, it's just a cognitive behavioral tool, but it really works practically. What's the goal of that? We want to slow his mind, her mind down. We want to slow it down enough so they can gain control. In a sense, they're not even, impulsivity is about being out of control. It's about not being in control of your own emotions.
Not slowing down, thinking it through.
Your own words. Yeah, you're just reacting. Yeah. So when you slow it down, once you give them the trigger word, then the second thing is tell them what to do, how to slow it down. That means take a step back, take a deep breath, think about what you're about to do, think about what you're about to say, or in some cases, what you're about to redo. Let's give them a redo, as you have done, and implemented so beautifully. With your child, but have a redo of, wait a minute, that was impulsive. I'm going to call whatever, the trigger word is. and I'm going to give you a chance to step back. And they're associating now that word with this behavior, and slow down and choose a different path.
So this is a shift, and these are little shifts to create, not when you're in a heated moment, right? Not when you're in the moment and they're impulsive and you might be reacting to them being impulsive. This is outside of that time where you can begin to teach and model and set up those little shifts to try.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. The little shifts, but also realize that when you use the trigger word, if let's say they are impulsive and you use the trigger word and then they step back and they do it again, they do it better. Then it's really important. It's really important that you affirm that you validate. They need that. Remember, they need words of affirmation. They need that appropriate physical touch. They need that facial expression of "I'm proud of you" face that you can give them, and that look or those words are so critical. So proud of you for redoing this and how you did it, and they will work harder for your approval and affirmation.
Yeah, that's good.
Answer the question is, develop a trigger to help them. The goal is to slow them down, develop a trigger, help them to know what to do when you say it. Stop, breathe, choose, that kind of thing. And then validate.
Yeah. This is something to try this summer. These pieces that you're mentioning of how you can break it down and give yourself some time in order to create those little shifts. We've got a couple of points. We're thinking about being on point for this summer. So we've got a couple of points that we want to talk about from a parenting perspective. So you parents that have young kids that are getting out of school and they're going to be home for the summer, they're going to be doing things. We've got a couple of points that we want to just talk about today, kind of flesh out. Maybe they'll help us. We want it to help you. We want it to bring some refreshing thoughts to you so that you can feel like you've got a game plan to be on point for the summer. It has nothing to do with camps or what camp to send them to or what to do, but it's talking about the relationship. We want to talk about the relationship.
That's right.
And so let me start with this first point, and that is about building connection this summer. This summer, your kids are not in that rigid routine of being at school. And so they're not having to do homework and classwork. They might have to do some summer reading, some things like that. But there's some time where you can grab some attention. There's some time this summer that you could have some little shifts and you could be intentional to think about your connection with your child. So let's talk about that. If we're not careful as human beings, we will put on others the connection pieces that we want. We will want connection for them to be what we like as connection.
Right.
So if we think back to our personality, so let's talk about, how can we be intentional to build in some connection? What is connection? How would you define connection?
And you said it just right. Connection doesn't normally just happen by osmosis. Connection is when we have a moment, when we have a time, when we have those maybe moments that we feel that the other person understands where we're coming from, and that we understand them. That we both mutually, that goes both ways, that we are attached is too strong, but emotionally attached. Emotionally, we are aligned. We are in the same space. Hitting the bullseye. Yeah. Emotionally, we are together. That's what a connection is. It's emotionally aligning and being together. The problem is we believe that they just mysteriously happen. And if they don't happen, there's nothing we can do. I'm just so different than my child, and I just don't understand my child, so I can't connect. No. It's about choosing to understand who your child is so that you can get to where he is, so you can get to where she is. Those are choices, and connections are intentional.
Yeah. So if we put that into real life and we look at what does that look like? So if I'm a parent and, I value laughing, cutting up, being silly, and my child, let's say one of my children is a camel, and I really want to connect. I want to connect some this summer. So if I'm not careful, I will try my hardest to get them to laugh because that makes me feel comfortable, right? You know, I want them to laugh and cut up and have a good time. And they're reading a book, okay? And they want to focus in on the content of the book, and they want the calm environment and, you know, their blankets and their pillows and everything just how they want it. And I'm up in their space. You know, that's not building connection.
No,
right?
it's not.
So rewind that.
Exactly right.
And let's look at that. How could I do that if I'm a parent?
You just spot on with that's not connecting. We make those assumptions that our child wants to connect the way we did. We miss the whole thing. So if our child is a camel, what I'm going to have to do as a parent is I'm going to have to lower my energy. I'm going to have to realize what connection for me is not connecting for her. So my job is to get to where she is, and I'm not going to expect her to get to where I am step one.
So say that again.
So my job is to get to where she is emotionally, not for her to get to where I am and make me feel comfortable. So therefore, as a parent, I'm going to lower my energy. I'm going to build some structure that lets her know ahead of time when we're going to spend some time together. I'm going to make our time scheduled so she'll know when it starts and when it stops. I'm going to make it low key so that she'll feel like she's not having to be somebody she's not. And I'm going to design that connection time so that it meets her need. And then it's really important because as a parent, I'm looking for feedback. I need that affirmation. I need that. I'm gonna have to realize I'm not gonna get that. My expectation is I'm designing a structured connection time for me and my child so that she feels like I'm getting to where she is. End of story.
So I have to bank on the fact that I chose to do this. I know this is what a camel needs and wants and can bring them a connection. And so I do the work to do that.
You do the work. You said it perfectly. It takes work to connect. And I've got to be willing to do the work to connect to my child where he is, where she is. And it's not going to feel, as a parent, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel, it's going to be like,
it's going to feel structured
and boring. But boy, it's going to meet her need. And to know that I put in the energy to get out of my parent quadrant over into her camel quadrant, that will speak to her for years to come. May not speak right now, but she will recognize that if we make a consistent pattern of doing that, and it will have dividends as she grows and as she matures. Because this isn't one time, just do it one time and never. No, if this is who she is, it's a lifetime of understanding and then teaching her at the appropriate time then how to give back to others. So there is a time when we want to teach her to give to others and how to connect to others, how to get out of her quadrant. That's the next stage, that's another conversation. But we do want to get there. We want to demonstrate it. We want to show it, and then we want to teach her how to do that as well.
So another point for the summer, as we're thinking about heading into that, is modeling calm. How do we do that as parents? So the summer, you don't have that structure of school, and so maybe you've tried to create some structure for your child this summer, your children. And so, summer's different. The schedule's different, the plans are different. And so, it can create this environment where, you've got your children at home, you're running fast, maybe you're trying to get them to different places, you got sibling stuff going on. And so how can we as parents, how can we model calm?
You don't start in the moment. You don't start in the middle of the chaos that happens in summer, because summer...
You might be reminded in the middle of chaos. You need to do it, right?
100% will be reminded. But it means we really need to prepare. The first step is to know yourself. Know what it is you need in the moment to remain calm. So if you're a parent, you're going to need to lower that emotion to make sure you don't allow them. If you're a lion, you're really going to need to turn that filter wide up. I mean, wide open. You need to filter those words. Don't allow that passion that lions have to intimidate. If you're a camel parent, you're going to have to that frustration and that anxiety that you feel when things go off the rail and your best made plans go out the door, you got to realize that what you need to do is take a step back from that as a camel and be a little bit loose and let things go. You model calmness by lowering the anxiety level when things go off the rail. With the turtle, you got to realize that in times of stress and in case you would think turtles would be the best at calm, but what they do is they step back and become passive. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about modeling calm so you can step into the issue and step into what needs to happen and step into the discipline or step in. So turtles they have to really do the reverse. They have to work on stepping up and stepping into the moment instead of pulling back.
So there's a word out there that you may have heard of, you may not, but it's called emotional regulation. So basically regulating your emotions. So what I'm hearing you say as parents, in order to learn how to keep a good valve, a good gauge on our emotions, we've got to have our own toolbox.
That's right.
So as a parent, we've got to know what sets us off. We've got to know what pushes us out of calmness. We've got to also have the tools that we've created to get us to calmness. Sometimes it is removing ourselves and having a little time out for our own selves.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's creating some space so your child can go kind of have some time too, and being able to slow ourselves down so that we can not act out of emotion, but we can act out of being calm and coming from a calm place. We all know that's much harder to do than to talk about it. But my question is, are we as parents, are we equipping ourselves to have a toolbox for our own self?
It's a great question.
We focus a lot on our kids to give them tools and resources, but we as parents need to be able to gather our own tools on that and figure that out. It takes some time to do that because you really have to be aware of, what sets you off, and like you said, you can't be in the moment to do that. That can bring some awareness, but kind of have to do some work to figure out.
That's right.
Okay, when this happens, then I'm going to work hard to do this.
That's right.
And when this happens, I'm going to do this.
It is work, but it's so worth it. And you can't expect your child to grow up and have healthy relationships and know how to shift in a relationship unless you demonstrate that. And you can't demonstrate it unless you know what your tools are and you have them in your box and you're practicing. So it's like we're working on this so that we can be better parents for sure, but also so we can teach our children and give them the ability to learn and grow and demonstrate for them and let them model what we're doing. It's so important. It's more than just about us, right?
And you said practicing, to me that's so important too, that we give ourselves room and space to practice and that we're not going to get it right and we're not going to do it. We are going to get frustrated, but that we stay committed to practicing, to trying, to working it out, to getting it right sometime and figuring out so that we can really, like you said, model it ourselves first. We can demonstrate that. And of course that helps the whole family, it helps the dynamic overall, not just with our children, but with everybody incled in the family.
Everybody, and unless you think this is not important, let me just say this as we kind of think about that and think about our children for a minute. Data tells us that 40% of children do not have a strong emotional connection with their parents. Now think about that one. 40%. I mean, that's scary to me. So we've got to turn that. I think this is really important work. We've got to turn that. And I'm sitting on the other side of this thing a little bit because I have adult children now and went through, obviously it's very different in today's world, but emotionally it's the same. And as we parent in that parent-child relationship, seeing that relationship move, and it will move to adult, the best way that you can have a healthy adult-to-adult relationship with adult children is to do the work now while they're in your home. Do the work, not perfect at all, but do the work so that you can. My number one priority when our kids were children was to work hard to create a relationship with them, a connection with them, not for even then, but for a lifetime, from when they were adults. And now I'm able to have that not perfect, but strong relationship with these adult children. And I'm reaping some of the benefit from the work that we did, when she was young, he was young. I have a daughter and a son. So it's worth it. I'm on the other side looking back saying it's worth every amount of effort you put into it to develop that strong relationship.
Well, this is a key time, as they're children, that you have that influence. We know the teenage years come and you're going to lose your influence.
Right.
So it is.
Right.
It's so valuable, so valuable. So our last point for the summer is, if we're doing these things where we're trying to build connection, we're not perfect, but we're being intentional to build connection, and we're trying to stay calm too for ourselves and work on that for ourselves. The third point is to be able to keep the fun in summer. Be able to really use this time because it's different. You're not in the day in and day out of rigorous school schedule and getting to work or getting kids in all these different places. That you focus on some fun, and that your family defines what fun is.
So good.
That everybody has a part in, defining, describing, coming up with what fun is. Everybody gets to have a piece of that puzzle too.
That's good.
But you don't forget the fun in it.
What you said is so important. Fun is very different for every member of your family and each child. It's not one size fits all. And I think we get so caught up in providing fun for our children in today's world that we just think, okay, I'm going to add on more. I'm going to add on more. I'm going to add on more. And before we know it, so our kids can have fun, we're running them so hard that they have no idea what fun is. But listening to what they need and asking what is fun to you, because we know a turtle fun is very different than a parrot fun or a camel fun. So asking those questions, but then creating it and keeping it loose and giving yourself permission to laugh at yourself. I failed so many times as a parent, but having the ability to laugh at that and get up and brush myself off and go again, and it's so important. And giving yourself a break. Let's lighten up and let's have some fun this summer, right?
Yeah. So speaking of fun, your jokes are so much fun.
I thought you would never ask.
So you have a new joke book.
I do have a new joke book,
and we've got some new jokes.
This is my dad joke. People clamor for this. They ask for it. We have to feed the people what they want.
Do you have data on that? I'm just curious.
I do have data. It's completely made up, but I can get. You and Robin love this.
We do.
It's always scary for you because you never know what I'm going to say.
Never ever.
Where this thing is going. But here we go. Are you ready for the dad joke?
Let's have it.
All right. My therapist hates that I stand in the corner of the waiting room, blowing air at everyone. It's annoying, but I'm a big fan. I just love that. That was one of my favorites. I just love it.
It goes with summer. The fan.
That's what I thought. I wanted to stay in the theme, Melissa. Hey, thank you so much for hanging out with us and talking about a very important topic, but yet having a little fun as well. We hope that you've taken away some things that can help you to shift in your relationships so that you can make a difference.